To Wednesday at noon.
Shalom, Rabbi.
We're being recorded. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Don't say anything you don't want to be recorded.
Oh, okay.
Just say you're fine. That's all.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, you look good.
Shalom, Rabbi.
Shalom, Martin and Shana. How are you?
Doing well.
Good. Look forward to reconnecting. All right. Give me 2 minutes and we'll get started. I'll be right there. All right, welcome. Today, chapter 14, Birth to B'nai Mitzvah. And so we're going to talk about kids, youth, what we're trying to do for the next generation. And so it's a few practical parenting things, but mostly about next generation issues and life cycles, Jewish life cycles. And so we can all sort of get our orientation for that. Between the bris and the bar and bat mitzvah, a lot goes into raising a Jewish child. In this class, we'll discuss the joys and oys of Jewish parenting. Right? And raising a mensch is the idea. So what is a mensch? Mensch comes from Yiddish. It is means man, I think, human being in German. Correct me if I'm wrong. So that's the technical translation, but in Judaism, it carries a lot of implication and suggestion with it, and a lot of color and tone. Mensch, a person of quality. It means an ideal person, a mensch. And so here are some associations that we have with the mensch. There are a lot of them. All right, and ambition, bravery, compassion, courtesy, creativity, curiosity, determination, excellence. The question is for you. So I'm going to invite you to choose three. Choose your top three. Choose your top three to define a mensch. Yeah, there's no wrong answers here. Ambition, bravery, compassion, courtesy, creativity, curiosity, determination, excellence, faith, flexibility, generosity, gratitude, honesty, honor, humility, humor. Just the amount of characteristics are amazing, right? That are associated with mensch. Idealism, imagination, integrity, intelligence, kindness, love, loyalty, morality, obedience, patience, perseverance. It's like a Boy Scout, almost, right? Boy Scout codes of honor, perseverance, respect, self-discipline, service, strength, trustworthiness. Right, so just let's reflect for a moment that we have an ideal situation here, which is we set a course for our young people to achieve, right? And we know, and these are the characteristics of what we're hoping for. All right, Charles, top three?
No, first I want to notice that courage is not written. I believe courage should be included.
Bravery, courage, yes. Well, yeah, okay. Associated with bravery, I suppose, but courage, yeah, good, thank you. So that would be one of your top ones, is courage?
Courage, charity, and love.
Courage, charity, and love. Courage, charity, and love. Very nice. All right, so that's your ideal mensch. Good. So things that jumped out at me were integrity, courtesy, honor, honesty. Yeah, so those are a couple. Anybody else want to chime in? Which are the ones that jumped out for you? Oh, Gail, you want to?
Love, for sure.
Love. Good. A loving person means to be a mensch. That's what we're looking for. Good. Thank you. All right. So we all have our own kind of take and perspective on what it means to be a true mensch, but those are general ideas. The word mensch, it comes from menschlichkeit, is the noun form, refer to the ethical behavior or the characteristics and qualities of a mensch, an act demonstrating a person's menschlichkeit. What you want to achieve is proper menschlichhood, right? Menschlichkeit. I guess that's how you use it in English. Menschhood is menschlichkeit. And then it's tzaddik. I said there's a tradition that there are 36 tzaddikim. There are 36 truly wonderful people in the world. At any time, so here's the tradition. It's not so popular. The 36ers. Jewish tradition teaches that there are, at any given time, at least 36 truly righteous people in the world, and that we are sustained through their merit. It's through their merit that the world continues on and is sustained. A truly wonderful person might be described as a real Lamed Vavnik. You might hear that sometime. A real Lamed Vavnik means like one of the top superstar mensches in the world. So there you go. So that's our ideal, is to raise good people, good ethical people, kind people, loving people, courageous people. And these are the life cycles that help us get there. When a baby is born, they are welcomed into the world through either a Brit Milah for the boys, otherwise known as a bris, or a Simchat Bat for the girls. So the Brit Milah, the word Brit or bris in Ashkenazic Yiddish pronunciation, Brit Milah it means a covenant. To enter into a covenant, which is the point of the Brit Milah, which we'll discuss in more detail soon. The female equivalent is Simchat Bat, and some do it on the 8th day just to sort of replicate the Brit Milah. More common, we do it sort of after the baby settles in a couple months later, and that's the equivalent for a baby girl. We call it Simchat Bat. So we've got the Brit Milah for a boy and a Simchat Bat for a girl. Both of these ceremonies, one of the key elements is the Hebrew name, the bestowing upon the child of a Hebrew name. And sometimes they mirror the English name. Sometimes they don't. Often we name Jewish babies after souls of the departed, if we want to give someone an honor who has left this world. We name people after them and keep their memory alive. And so that's a common thing. At the Brit Milah, we have a mohel, who is the person in charge of the Brit Milah. Luckily, in the conservative movement, we have a lot of folks who do both pediatrics and Brit Milah. And so we have surgeons getting trained as mohalim and mohalot. We have some women and men, both in the Houston community, who are both doctors and perform circumcisions ceremonially for the Jewish people. So that's a real blessing. We'll get into that a little bit later. Sandik, Kvater, and Kvaterin. The Sandik is the person who has the honor of holding the baby during the Brit Milah, and the Kvater and Kvaterin carry the baby in. The chair of Elijah. There's a special chair designated at the Brit Milah as the chair of Elijah the prophet. So the imagination, we imagine that Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet, comes to every Brit Milah and has a seat. And so we prepare a seat, right? So Elijah is one of those people who floats between this world and the next, right? So we have God and the heavenly beings in the heavens, and then we're here on earth. And there's not, at moments of spiritual elevation, we can, that's a revelation, elevation, we can cross that boundary, right? But there are other boundary crossers that do that all the time. One such boundary crosser between this world and the next is Elijah the prophet. and he never really died in the Tanakh. He got carried away on a chariot and never really died in this world. And so that's why Eliyahu comes back and forth. So when does he come to visit us? Yeah, there are times in our tradition on the calendar that Eliyahu comes and visits us. So one of them is Saturday nights after Shabbat is over. During Havdalah, we sing Eliyahu Hanavi, the transition from Shabbat to weekday. So we welcome Elijah's spirit. Also on Passover night at the Seder table, right? We have Elijah's cup and we open the door for Eliyahu Hanavi, and we also kind of imagine that there's some physical presence that is Eliyahu Hanavi at the Seder table. We open the door, he drinks some wine, right? And at the Brit Milah here, he has a seat. Elijah the prophet comes and has a seat. So why at, what's the common denominator between all these events? One of them is times of transition, dangerous times, right? Liminal moments in life where there's risk, danger, and fear. And Eliyahu comes to bring a little bit of calming spirit to us and protective spirit to us from God, from the next world to this world. And so there's one more tradition with Eliyahu, which is Eliyahu used to rebuke the Jewish people, as many prophets did. You know, how are you ever going to survive if you don't, do teshuvah, repent immediately, or we're never going to make it to the next generation as Jews. We're never going to survive. The lineage will never go on. And so Eliyahu has a seat at the Brit Milah to show, I thought it wasn't going to go on, and here we go. The Jewish people survive generation to generation. So that's why he comes and bears witness to every Brit Milah. There's an interesting custom called a Pidyon haben. It comes from the Torah. The firstborn male of animals and human beings are considered holy and special. First fruits of the season are sanctified and special. The first, the Bechor, the firstborn, is endowed with special privilege and honor. And one of those privileges is service to the temple. So if the firstborn male is born, then they are automatically enlisted into service at the Holy Temple back in the day. So the firstborn males used to go and serve in the temple. However, if their families didn't want to let them go, there was a way to redeem them from temple service, which is a few gold coins or something like that. And instead of giving their child to service to the temple, they would be able to keep them at home. They would redeem them from having to go to the temple. And so that continues to be a part of our legacy and part of our ritual ceremonies. For firstborn children, a month after they're born, you invite a Kohen, a priest, over to your home. And there's a redemption ceremony with a couple of coins and a priest. Right now, of course, it's ritual and ceremonial. But in the Orthodox community, they take it quite seriously. In some parts of the conservative movement, they continue that practice. And it's very nice. And, I've done 5 or 6 of them in my lifetime. So it's not very common practice, but it's still around. That's called a Pidyon haben. As promised, let's get back to circumcision a little bit. God said to Abraham, "You must keep my covenant, you and your descendants after you, for the generations to come. This is my covenant with you and your descendants after you. The covenant you are to keep, every male among you shall be circumcised." So there you go. Genesis chapter 17. It's pretty explicit. Every male among you shall be circumcised. So we have a page here written by the author of this curriculum. We'll go through a little bit of it. You are to undergo circumcision, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and you. All right. Statement from the American Academy of Pediatrics. Luckily for us, the medical community supports circumcision. New, for the most part, yes. The new scientific evidence shows the health benefits of newborn male circumcision outweighs the risks of the procedure. Right. So the evidence seems to show that the health benefits outweigh the risks, but the benefits are not great enough to recommend routine circumcision for all newborn boys. Right. So if it's so good, if it's so good for you, why don't we circumcise everybody? It's just, well, you know, there are still risks, and so it can't be recommended for as routine. The revised policy, so this is from 2012. You know, it's old news, but the scientific community continues to support circumcision, right, and in the majority mainstream, and so that's really good for the Jews, and is supported by scientific data. The AAP believes the health benefits are great enough that infant male circumcision should be covered by insurance, which would increase access to the procedure for families who choose it. So you can see that the medical community supports circumcision. Right. Alicia Silverstone, the Jewish actress and vegan activist, recently came out with a book on parenting in which she expresses why she chose not to circumcise. Right. And so in recent years, there have been movements to keep the body whole. And, you know, it's understandable, but Judaism says differently. Why? Let's look at here. So circumcision has many medical benefits, according to the interview with the Mohel, who's Dr. Andrew, is Kaiser Permanente, Woodland Hills, specialist in urology surgery, right? And he's a Mohel now. So are there medical benefits to circumcision? Circumcision has many medical benefits, very low rate of complications. Some of these benefits include decreased rate of pediatric urinary tract infections, decreased transmission of STDs, profound, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right, so let's go through how the procedure is done. Ceremony on the 8th day. Circumcision entails separating the foreskin from the head of the penis, applying a specialized device, and then removing the foreskin with the scalpel. When performed on a baby, the procedure requires no suturing and rarely results in any significant blood loss. Several different devices can be used to perform circumcision. Most commonly used techniques take anywhere from 30 to 45 seconds, right, to put on and take off. Right, there's like a shield to protect the body that modern mohalim and mohalot use. Right. From a technical point of view, there's no difference between a circumcision performed in a hospital compared with one performed in a home. However, a hospital circumcision is merely a medical procedure. A Brit Milah is a religious ceremony, which includes the circumcision, the Yehovah blessings, and the baby naming. In other words, the doctors bring the kit to the home, and they have everything they need there. The only risk would be if something goes terribly wrong, and he says it just basically doesn't. Very, very low rate of complications. Babies certainly feel some pain during circumcision, but they usually recover quickly. We minimize trauma for the babies by giving them wine, sugar during the procedure, and we feed them prior to the ceremony to make sure they aren't hungry. Right? So there's care involved in taking care of the baby. How do you find one? The best way is word of mouth, asking your synagogue. What is a hatafam dot brit? The other thing that the Mohalim do, in addition to infant circumcision, is when adult men convert to Judaism, they go through what's called a hatafat dambrit, which I sort of call a faux circumcision. And what you do is take a small needle and take a drop of blood from the penis in order to make the circumcision a kosher circumcision performed by a mohel and with the proper blessings. This is performed for anyone who do not have the appropriate prayers said at the time of their circumcision. In other words, if you had a secular circumcision in the hospital and would like to have a kosher circumcision, it just requires a hatafat dam brit, which the mohalim and mohalot are trained to do. So that's our circumcision. We have a couple of great mohalim locally. And so we're very blessed here in Houston to have a couple of different really nice options. All right, so we're going to have a Brit Milah Simchat Bat. Let's talk about the ceremony and what happens. When does it happen? As we talked about, the 8th day, or for a girl, at the convenience of the family. The whole ceremony is typically about 30 minutes, and the baby comes into the room. There are ritual blessings. The mohel generally runs the ceremony. The rabbi can be invited and helps out as an honor. And people often get nervous going to a Brit Milah or even having a Brit Milah because, frankly, it's pretty unusual to witness a surgical procedure done in a home, right? So that's the odd thing, right? So the mohel said before that it's pretty much the same thing, hospital or home, but it is a little strange to do a surgical procedure in a home or a synagogue. Once you've seen it, though, it really isn't as much of a big deal as it may sound. Mohels are experts at their procedures. Many are also MDs. And the actual circumcision only takes a few seconds, involving little or no bleeding, and heals completely within a few days. Infants generally cry more when their diaper is removed than with the actual procedure. And if you are uncomfortable, understand that unless you are right up front, it is unlikely that you'll see anything at all. So don't worry. This is your first time going to a Brit Milah. It's not like it's broadcast up close. You can just stand in the back. And there you go. Simchat Bat, right? And so in the last century, a Simchat Bat was created. So before the Simchat Bat modern creation, there was no official welcoming ceremony for a girl. Can you believe that? You come to shul, parents receive an aliyah and name their child in synagogue informally, but there was no formal celebration, and so that ain't right. So in the liberal movements, we came up with an equivalent called Simchat Bat, and it's carries the same structure of the Brit Milah. The similarities are the baby naming itself, right? The naming at the Brit Milah and the naming at the Simchat Bat are the same, but the rituals are different for obvious reasons. So it includes for Simchat Bat, the ceremonial things are not surgical, but rather prayerful and ritual. And so here are some typical readings that are done at the Simchat Bat in addition to the actual naming. May you delight in learning and reading and discovery. May you search for what it means to be human, right? And so beautiful poetry and poems and blessings that we convey upon this child. And it's a beautiful thing. Some people add things like a talit wrap or a, touching the Torah ceremony to add a little more intense ritual rather than just words. Some people, for Nava, we did a foot washing ceremony. We just added a little water and beauty and ritual to the ceremony. And so the Simchat Bat is a great time to be creative. And we have a little more time to plan, given it's not on the 8th day necessarily. And so that's the Simchat Bat. Okay, so now we flash forward to the bar and bat mitzvah. Right? And so in some cultures, the transition from childhood to adolescence is marked by sending the young person off to survive alone in the wilderness for a period of time. Jews make our awkward teenagers stand up and chant ancient Hebrew with a cracking voice in front of everyone they have ever known. So also a terrifying experience, right? And so I think the bar bat mitzvah section here is done with a little bit of humor, which is nice. It takes place at 13. For the boys and the girls here at the shul, traditionally, girls became bat mitzvah at 12, right? So the question is why? Why is there an age difference between how the boys would celebrate and how the girls would celebrate? It's a well-known, I don't know if it, physical maturation happens more quickly in girls than in boys, right? And so what we're celebrating here is actually a life cycle experience, not just a time counter of 13. We are celebrating and commemorating the move from physical maturity of a child into an adolescent, right? Their bodies start to change, hormones kick in, and they become human beings on a more sophisticated level, which includes sexuality and relationships, and right, that's when everything, and morality and choices. So this is the gateway into a different phase in a child's life from childhood to adolescence. And so actually in the rabbinic texts, in the Mishnah and the Gemara, it didn't say a specific number necessarily. The time for a boy back in the day to become a bar mitzvah is pubic hair. Is when the physical maturation, body hair, when the boy starts to sprout hair, that's when it's time for him to commemorate his bar mitzvah. So that's right back in the day. So flash forward to contemporary times, that would be awkward to do that sort of thing. And so we just said, all right, let's just do 13 for the boys and 12 for the girls. That's approximately when they physically mature. Right, so that's how that came to be, 12 and 13. And then the next iteration of that is egalitarianism and equality. We wanted to systematically make it egalitarian and equal. And so we just did 13 for everybody. And so there you go. So I think I mentioned that because, hey, for the history and the evolutionary aspect, but also to note that this is an actual life cycle experience. We're not like fabricating something on top, fabricating something. We are actually commemorating a shift in the child's life. And as a result, in the family structure, in the family's life. What's going to happen, right? We've been to bar and bat mitzvahs, right? The child leads the prayers, right? And receives an aliyah, and then there's a kiddush. There we go. The meaning of 13, Rabbi Ed Feinstein. 13 is recognized as the beginning of a new phase of moral and spiritual life. Right? It's true, it's physical maturation, and it's also bring that those hormones and those decisions bring all kinds of challenges, moral choices. According to Pirkei de Rabbi Elazar, 13 was the age when Abraham smashed his father's idols. It's when he developed his own independent spiritual life, right? It was the age when Jacob and Esau separated. Jacob to a life of Torah and Esau to the practice of idolatry. It's when they formed their identity. 13 is the age when Levi was, when he and his brother Simeon attacked the people of Shechem to avenge their sister. This was the time that they took responsibility for their family. And 13 was the age in which Bezalel gained the artistic skill to build the Mishkan, the tabernacle. Bezalel is the artisan. It was told of him he had a special gift, a special divine gift of artistry. And 13 was the age in which that he discovered it, that it had been developed. Each of these images is remarkably suggestive. Together, they describe a vivid picture of adolescence. Right? Abraham, a time of rebellion, a time to find your own way. The youngster sees himself or herself as a prisoner, the first to set foot on a new moral territory. Here she seeks ideals, a sense of mission, a clear voice of conscience to follow. Teens have little tolerance for the false, the compromise, the superficial, right? And so these are rebellious young people, not rebellious, young people looking for identity formation. And typically, they want to find it outside of their parents' construct. And sometimes there's a second home in some of the literature that Vicki and I read up on as our kids were becoming adolescents. They find another family that they do. Oh, I love the way they do this. I love the way they do that, right? Which is very common because these young people are searching, right? They don't want to just follow in their parents' footsteps. Typically, they want to form their own path. Like Jacob's life, number 2, adolescence is a time of spiritual search and a quest for identity. Somewhere out there is a truth waiting for him or her. God is waiting at the end of the wilderness, but the quest demands we leave home and endure a journey fraught with peril and uncertainty, right? These folks have to find their own way, right? There's some uncertainty and risk at this moment. Like Levi, adolescence is a time for moral absolutes. There's good and evil. There's not a lot of gray and sophistication in their thinking, obviously. This is before they've attended college and whatnot. So morality is absolute, basically, right? Which, so judgmental, intolerant, demanding. Teens can also be deeply loyal, passionately dedicated, and aggressive in their pursuit of a better world. Right? And we're seeing that, especially among young liberals are hitting the streets. Teenagers are becoming leaders. Like Bezalel, adolescence is a time when every creative impulse flowers. Practicality and realism will come later in life. For now, no dream is beyond realization. No plan is out of reach. In adolescence, each of us dream of building a dwelling place for God in the world in our own way. That's a bit of a stretch at the end there, but yes, but there's no, it's a time of purity, of pure dreaming, right? Anything can really happen. So that's bar mitzvah. They are taught how to don a talit. We teach them the art of the tefillin, the phylacteries. They receive an aliyah to the Torah and offer a Devar Torah. So they each have a weekly Torah portion that is theirs, and they read up on it and then teach us a little bit about it. 10 ways to share Judaism with your kids, right? And then we'll look at a couple other resources. Number 1, insist on a family Shabbat dinner. What a beautiful, beautiful thing. Our children weren't allowed on Friday nights, but they could invite any of their friends to join us for Shabbat dinner, where we always serve 2 desserts, right? Make Shabbat dinner fun. Let kids invite friends, invite the grandkids, and have a Shabbat party, right? No need for formality or boredom. Make it fun and festive. Grow your collection of Jewish books, PJ Library. Cook Jewish foods together. Oh, baking challah is awesome and delicious. Decorate your home for the holidays. Take Shabbat on the road. Do it at a park bench in nature. Affix mezuzot to the kids' bedrooms. Make a shabbox for the little kids, a workbook for, to decorate a shoebox and make that the Shabbat box. Prominently place and fill tzedakah boxes. Get way into the Jewish holidays. Bake a happy birthday world cake for Rosh Hashanah. Build a sukkah and sleep in it. Fry latkes for Hanukkah. Take a hike on Tu B'Shvat. Costume photo every year on Purim. Throw awesome Passover seders. Stay up late eating ice cream and reading Jewish books on Shavuot. Right? This stuff is supposed to be festive and fun. They're called festivals. Have some fun. Send your kids to Jewish camp. There's no more powerful place for building Jewish identity than summer camp, where basketball games, moonlight hikes, and first kisses are all Jewish experiences. Isn't that sweet? People talk about Jewish camp because educators talk about Jewish camp because of its immersive environment away from home, right? Which is the perfect place to form identity. And the values are explicit, hopefully, in Jewish camps and taught beautifully through role modeling of their counselors. So there's so many educational principles at work at Jewish camps. It's a beautiful thing. One of my favorite educational principles at Jewish summer camp is simply fun. Right? To associate Judaism with positivity and laughter and fun and joy, I think is underestimated. So that's the aspect of Jewish camp that I connect to a lot, and I think is underappreciated. Just connecting Judaism with having fun. So Jewish camp is a beautiful place to for the kids to form solid Jewish identities. There are a couple of nice PowerPoints. There we go. Can you see that? Yeah. Okay. One was, all right, Elijah's chair. So that's, we have one at the shul, donated by Dr. Sam Axelrad. That's it's a beautiful Elijah's chair with some velvety cushions. And so that's available. Right, and so here's an interesting chart. Right, bar mitzvah for a male, bat mitzvah for a female, and b'nai mitzvah, right, for binary and in between, which we're beginning to celebrate as well. So let's use the plural. That's the b'nai mitzvah. So bar mitzvah male, bat mitzvah female, b'nai mitzvah plural. We just had triplets, had a b'nai mitzvah up on the bima last week. So that's the plural. A child becomes a bar or bat mitzvah. You become a bar mitzvah. So in other words, you don't attend a bar mitzvah, is what the intent of the slide is to correct the common misunderstanding that a bar mitzvah, you go to a bar mitzvah ceremony or you go to a bar mitzvah party, but the child becomes a bar mitzvah, a person who is commanded. So the child is referred to as the bar mitzvah or the bat mitzvah. And the ceremony is referred to the bar mitzvah ceremony. I understand it's a little bit technical when we say, are you going to the bar mitzvah? We're still going to say it, but just know that it's wrong and colloquial, right? And so in other words, a child becomes bar mitzvah upon reaching the age of 13 or 12, earning the privileges and assuming the responsibilities of adult membership in the Jewish community. Right? You become a bar mitzvah. The child demonstrates their acceptance of adult communal responsibility by doing these things during the bar and bat mitzvah ceremony. And then typically, although less and less so during the pandemic, we'll see what happens to the bar mitzvah parties if they go back to the way they were or they shift into a new normal. But the bar mitzvah parties, middle school dance party meets ancient communal celebration in the bar mitzvah party. Customs vary, awkwardness guaranteed. That's true. That's true. Right there have been, Hollywood has picked up on the extremes of the bar mitzvah party in a couple of films. What's the guidance here? The guidance here is meaningful, right? That it should be that the rabbinic perspective is that you can have a meaningful party, a meaningful celebration, which means honoring family and friends. It means enjoying life. Yeah, whatever it means, it means. But there we go. The party is part of the experience. I think it's good because right, we always want to add fun and joy to this experience. It doesn't have to be study and homework and reviewing your Torah portion. I think the party is a good thing, but as long as it's done in a meaningful, appropriate way. It sounds good. And Jewish education and informal, here's a view of Jewish summer camp. Love it. Got the guitars and the boys and girls singing out in nature. Looking good, all dressed up for Shabbat, I think, I would imagine. And so we love that. How to raise a Jewish child. This is a quadrants of the Jewish home. Model Jewish learning, right? So remember not to just teach Jewish learning, but to do it, right? So learn like this, right? Continue learning. When your kids see you learning and grandkids see you learning and the next generation sees you learning, then they that's how they know the Torah is valuable. Identify Jewish teachable moments, life cycles, camping trips, say a Shechianu when you see that first mountain, right? Create positive Jewish memories, make room for the holy, right? Which just means keep an eye out, I think. Keep an eye out for the holy, right? And right. Good. And then one last definition of a mensch, a person of quality, right? So we want, that's the goal. We want to keep in mind this ideal of becoming a mensch, of raising mention in the next generation. Definition number one, person of quality. So that has all of these qualities that we saw before. And we'll look at this list one more time and play with it. The embodiment of all the positive values that one hopes to imbue in a child, right? So we're raising a next generation. We are looking at these B'nai Mitzvah ceremonies and see these lovely kids come through, and we assume responsibility to role model and teach. And these are the things we're trying to teach, right? And role model. We're trying to teach all these different things, including other things that we come up with. But let's do the exercise one more time to remind us of our responsibility to imbue all of our life cycles and all of our teaching moments with this stuff, right? So this is what we want to role model and teach in order for the next generation to outdo us, right? We want to make sure that they're better than us at this stuff. So let's tell you what. Let's take one. So choose one from this list to work on this week, and that's we'll approach it that way. So take a minute and look at the list and see which one of these you want to work on this week. And what's the point? The point is that we can take control of our midot, right? Not only can we do it and have the self-discipline to do it, but we can also teach it and role model it. So that's mine. I just named mine self-discipline. I'm gonna try self-discipline, which means for me getting up a half an hour earlier than I have been, and make myself a nice cup of coffee, doing a little reading, writing. So I'm gonna that's my self-discipline in terms of my sleep schedule. I'm gonna try that. Who's got one that they want to try this week?
I am going to work on my creativity and imagination.
Nice. Do you have ideas about how to do that, approach that challenge?
I'm probably gonna focus on working on designing some new leather products. I like messing with leather a lot.
All right, so you'll take some time just to do brainstorming, creativity, figure out how to increase your creativity and
Exactly.
and imagination, right? So that means having taking a half hour to like let your mind go or whatever it means, right? So you'll work on that. Good. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to, because I'm saying this in front of other people, I'm also going to work on self-discipline. There's things I should be doing every morning when I get up, and I don't.
No, you and I are in it together. Okay.
I don't have like a set schedule.
Yeah. All right, let's do that. Well, yeah.
So, yes,
work on
and I
that.
like the idea of sitting there with a cup of coffee. I'm not usually a coffee person, but I like that idea of having that almost as a ritual to start the day.
Right. Yeah, that's my point there. Rituals. Yeah.
Yes.
Good. Love it. And we're going to check in next week. We're going to say, okay, how did you do on your midah, on your trait? Anybody else want to take one publicly, or just feel free to take one on privately? Okay. Excellent. All right. Thank you for engaging in right how to raise not only our families, children, and our grandchildren, but the community. Right. And so when you attend services and observe a bar and bat mitzvah, right? Let's try to intensify that experience by integrating all this information and noticing how important this moment is in the lives of the family, and saying Shabbat Shalom and appreciating the kid. Right, so thank you for being here. Work on your midah. Mine is self-discipline, which, like Rosalind, is going to mean just imposing a little more um, ritual and consistency into the rest of my week. All right. Looking forward to seeing you soon. I'll see you Sunday. We have another class if you want to join. All right, friends. See you soon.
Okay.